than anything else. Resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease, for we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambition, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burnt up. On the grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations, which... Okay. Over to you, Paul.
Oh, we're stopping there. I didn't hear that last bit, but yeah. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Paul, alcoholic. Breezy Tuesday. Yes, obviously this is we're entering into doing the starting to do the inventory on the first topic, which is looking at resentments to see how self manifested in various ways, resentments, is what has defeated us. Yeah. So, the resentment, the word means to re-feel. Re means to do again, and sent is to feel. So basically, something happens now, and it causes a reaction in my little programming to something that I thought had happened before. That's quite similar to what's going on now. So I resent that incident, and therefore I resent the people I feel had a lot to do with that incident, with me absent from any any uh, any role in it. They just did it right out of the blue. They just punched me in the face. I conveniently forgetting that I was making eyes with their girlfriend about 20 minutes before we got punched in the face. But hey, so resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. Yeah, I don't like the use of spiritual disease. I don't, I just think it's a deeper aspect of the mental state they're talking about. So where the illness goes deeper than just on the surface value. So I don't believe there's a spiritual sickness. I don't. Yeah. I think there's a sickness that completely underemphasizes the spiritual condition, which I would say it's derived from the mental, not from a spiritual. So it's more of a mental disease. In dealing with, we set them, we listed, yeah. So then he goes on and tells you what we're going to do, how to do the inventory. So again, just a couple sentences before that, I think this is how you can easily take to be the way to look at an inventory, because right before that is being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what has defeated us. Yeah, obviously that's the crucial point we're going to do the inventory around, is to see, we considered its common manifestations. So I feel this isn't just one of the directives, it's the directive, really, if you look at it. Yeah. What comes before the resentment paragraph? The last sentence is being convinced that self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. It doesn't say this is one of many ways of looking at the inventory. It seems like it's the direction of the inventory is to direct the attention of the inventory to see how self, through its manifestations, has defeated us. Yeah. Are we doing the inventory with that point as the primary point? Are we or aren't we? Or are we looking at our resentments our fears, and our harms done to others, don't you see that as misdirected? It goes completely against the direction of the big book on page 64. It sets the condition, which is being convinced of what? That self, manifested in various ways, was what had defeated us. We considered its common manifestations, and then one of the common ones is resentment. Yeah? It doesn't say we're going to now look at our resentments. It says resentment is the number one offender. It doesn't say our resentments are the number one offender, does it? It says resentment as if it's foreign to us in some respect, yeah? Where does the ownership come in? Yeah? To me, that's the bondage of self. We're bonded to something else's manifestations. I mean, Jesus Christ. And then to the point when we entertain being free, we entertain being free as that which is binding us. Yeah? How far is that going to go? It's surely going to lead to a quick defeat, because the underlying causes and conditions are misunderstood. I mean, I don't see how you can, if you took out everything before that, and you started at page 64, the third paragraph, and you went to, we did exactly the same thing with our lives. So he gave us the example of a business. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failures. Yeah, the flaws in our makeup that caused our failures aren't of us. They're of self, yeah? Be convinced that self, so when we look at the flaws in our makeup, it leads us to being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, is what has defeated us. We considered its common manifestations. Resentment is the number one offender, and then he tells you how to go about doing an inventory on what? On one of the common manifestations of self in our lives. Why do we keep calling it ours? Don't you see it's a huge distinction that needs to be put in before all the activity, not after the activity? Before all the working steps? Because this is step 4. It's launching us into the working steps, 4 through 9. Don't you feel like this is one of the direction-setting steps? Being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, is what has defeated us? All right, that's set. We're convinced of that, which means it's a solid, like a foot imprint in cement. You know what I mean? It's a solid, this is the direction we take, okay? What happens is we entered that direction with the prior direction. We keep calling the resentments ours. Yeah? And therefore, we don't do a fearless and thorough inventory, because we're going to be blind to shit that we think is ours, you know? Like, you may have an ugly kid, and if it's your kid, you think they're really handsome. And then, you know, they did a Seinfeld about that. The lady thought she had this beautiful baby, and they look into the crib, and they're like, what the hell? But, yeah, because it was her baby, it was the most beautiful baby. And, you know, of course it is in some level. But as an example, yes? The ownership causes you not to see things clearly. Yes or no? Yeah? Yes or no? Yes. My owning something brings about a certain sense of maybe defending it. Even though I know I'm wrong, I don't want to be shown to be wrong. Yeah? That comes from ownership. Yeah, it's like when you have a dog, you buy a puppy and it's so beautiful, then it turns into like an ugly, scrawny dog. You're always embarrassed because it's your dog. You think it's a bad reflection on you. You're like, fuck, I wanted a beautiful, you know, what happened? Yeah, I wanted a designer dog because it wasn't the dog, it was mine. The mine is inferring a lot of meaning. How are we going to get over a molehill that's taken to be a mountain? How are we going to get over my resentments when you can easily get over resentment? Do you think something that's based on lack of clarity is going to promote more clarity? The correction is needed at the beginning, not at the end. You need it in the beginning because it sets the direction of how you're proceeding. And it is not, there's no way he's saying we're going to look at our resentments. He says resentment is the number one offender. Yeah? What makes it the number one offender is the my, but it uses the resentment, but it's the my that makes it the number one offender. A resentment has never led me to drink. My resentments lead me to drink. Yes? You know, you can have tons of clarity from a starting point that squares 30. But if you've missed square 0, it's all going to have an overall cloudiness. As clear as you are about being fucked, you're still going to be fucked. Yeah? It's not going to lead you to where you think it would, because the knowledge is now claimed by self. And it's self-knowledge, and as it says in the big book, self-knowledge avails us nothing. Yeah? It doesn't say knowledge avails us nothing, and it doesn't say our resentments are the number one offender. It says resentment, and it says self-knowledge. Yeah? It doesn't say knowledge avails us nothing. It says self-knowledge avails us nothing. So knowledge claimed by self may not lead us to a lot of value. Yeah? It may actually reinforce the dilemma that we're trying to figure ourselves out of. Yeah? And also, conversely, resentment and my resentment are two different beasts. They're two different fucking things, really. My has a lot more fucking bite and a lot more, and its lifetime span is much longer, yeah? Some people have had a resentment for 40 years, or it's had them, yeah? Claiming it to be my resentment. Most resentments do not last 40 hours, 40 minutes maybe, yeah? But my resentment can live for 50 or 60 years. This is the point about these talks. We're not trying to get like super efficient at doing the steps. There's tons of advice about that, yeah? It's all out there. What are the underlying activities that we may not be aware of? Why was it so important that it became a common statement, at least in the AA community in Northern California, self can't get out of self? It must have had an incredible amount of value to a lot of people who are recovering from alcoholism, yeah? To come up with that observation. Self can't get out of self. Yeah? They must have been trying to get out of self as self. That's the only way you can come to that conclusion, really, is by trying it for a long time and seeing it didn't work. Yeah, that's the good news. That's what a failed system can show you. It's failed. Yeah. So a lot of us try to get out of self as self. Yeah, it hasn't worked. We're still trying to get out of self as self with recovery. Yeah. Now it may produce some effects, but if we're still completely preoccupied by what's not happening at the age, 30 years of sobriety, something's amiss, yeah? There must be some underlying condition that's infecting everything else that we're not aware of, yeah? Well, let's become aware of it at least. So, you tell me if this doesn't sound to be the directive of the book. Yeah, I'll just read it straight out of it. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. And then, It leads to being convinced that self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. What's going to convince you is when you start seeing your role in things, you're going to see self's role in things. Yes? How are you going to see self's role in things without seeing your role in things? They're synonymous in a way, yeah? You can't tell one from the other. So we look at our role in things and we realize self's role in things. And we're convinced that it's self that manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. We're not convinced that I defeated me. Yeah? We lived in that convincing. We're now convinced that self has defeated us. This changes the whole ball game. Yes? It changes the whole starting point. Yeah. So, what are the common manifestations? Resentment is one. 2 pages later, fear. And then we look at how we harm people in the pursuit of what we want. And we look at it with the topic of sex. Yeah, because a lot of meaning is given in that topic. So we can see something in stark contrast that we may do a lot of shit to get what we want. We may step on a lot of people's toes to get what we want. That's not only in the sexual arena. We use the sexual arena because of the importance it means for a lot of people to see it. Yeah, it just doesn't stay applied to the sex. You see, that's what it's like. There's a constant anxiety that you're at the precipice of losing what you have or not getting what you want, and you're basically, that which is driving you is apt to use you to do anything, really. Yeah, that's the condition we're in. Something has taken us over, and it's important to recognize it, or we're going to be living under a false assumption that we're something that we're not. Yeah, to the point we may be living as the parasite. Wow. So there is no place where it says we're now going to do an inventory on my resentments and my fears. It seems like we're going to do an inventory on my life and then see how self has defeated us through my life. And we're going to look at its common manifestations, which will give us the eyes to see its more subtle manifestations. Yeah. So we can recognize the thief before it enters the house. We can, it'll knock on the door and we won't call it me. Yeah. And we won't buy what it's selling because we'll see the great acronym of fear. One of them is false evidence appearing real. Yeah. Now we'll have the eyes to discriminate and we'll see false evidence as false evidence. Yeah. What leads you to the first drink? Not an honest assessment about what's going on. Yeah? Or an honest assessment of what's going to happen. Is there? No. It's false evidence. It's false evidence that's appearing real based on the conditions that we're in. Not how slick the evidence is. It isn't slick. It's false evidence. It's us that make it appear real. We have to be in a certain receiving condition to let false evidence constantly appear real to us. Yeah? What's that condition? I would say being the bondage of self is a pretty good description of that condition. We're in the bondage of self and false evidence keeps appearing real. Yeah? And most of us act out on it, and basically we're in our immediate need is harm reduction, really. We're usually already did something fucking stupid. Yeah? That's why I like the idea of my definition of an alcoholic and a recovered alcoholic is the alcoholic calls you after they drink and the recovered alcoholic calls you before they drink. After they drink, it's just harm reduction, isn't it? It's sort of like these people, all right, we're going to accept forest fires and we're just going to try to contain it. That's basically many of our conditions. Yeah? We do tons of stupid shit and we just try to contain the damage. Well, I just, if this thing goes on for years, this Zoom, it's going to be the same starting point. I don't see it changing, because I see it's the most influential point of any trip is the beginning. Yes, it's just the way it goes. If you got the whole understanding wrong, it's going to severely limit the possibility of recovery. It is. Yeah. Maybe you'll be able to maintain a condition that you won't drink, but you may not be a happy camper. Yeah. You may be full of anxiety. You may be harboring tons of resentments, but you're not drinking. That's great. But perhaps there's a better way. Maybe we could realize the futility of self trying to get out of self, or self trying to surrender to a higher power, which it has no intention of ever doing, and recognize we're not that, and then watch the migration of faith from that failed mechanism of reliance on self to a working system, which is trusting the infinite. Yeah. And we'll be a center of attraction, not promotion. Yes. That freedom from the bondage of self is quite attractive. Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know how I missed it, and know why I didn't miss it. I missed it is because I didn't see self as different than me. When they described self, I thought they were talking about me. Yeah? And so when they said being convinced that self was what has defeated us, I thought it was me, basically, that defeated me. Yeah? That's the understanding of the word when I used to read it. And then one day it shifted, and I saw self as foreign. Self has nothing to do. Self is not describing me. It's describing something else. Yeah? And as soon as I saw it as foreign, the possibility of being free from it really took hold. Yeah. And I think they have a lot to do with each other. First, I had to see what was defeating me as foreign, and then the possibility of being free from that defeat became available. Yeah. I think one comes before the other. I don't think the freedom is available if I don't see that self is other. I don't believe it. I don't believe you can be free as self. I just don't. I don't see it. Yeah, maybe someone has, but I haven't seen it. And I'm not a believer in it. So it's free from self, for sure, is readily available right now. But freeing as self, man, it's so impossible. It has people convinced it may take lifetimes, They sign up for spiritual things, and the return on their investment may take lifetimes for the self to finally find liberation. That's a bad deal to me, I think. That's like the antithesis of instant gratification. Yeah. So it was so important in my recovery and my life of being recovered to see the difference between self and what I am. It was the most important point, over all these years. Because if I don't see that, self is going to play the role of a higher power concerning a higher power. Self is going to play the role of God concerning God. That's what it does. Yeah. It says it made the third decision, and it can renege anytime it wants. So whatever thing it's interested in, it can take back and then try to manage it until it fails once again, and then begrudgingly surrender, but always have the clause in the contract. I can take anything back that I want when I want. Yeah. That's not surrender. That's a transactional fucking relation. And you're not going to win with a transactional relationship with a parasite. I'm just telling you right now. Don't go into a transactional relationship with a parasite. You're going to lose. I'm a spiritual financial counselor. I'm telling you, do not go into a transactional contract with a parasite. You're going to lose. But it's promising me, I know, but you're going to lose. And how do most people find that out? By doing exactly that. They go into a transactional contract. Self changes the hoops, changes the obstacles on the obstacle course, has you running around doing tricks to gain its permission to be okay. It's a very it sounds like the Old Testament God. You know what I mean? I want you to do this, that, and then when you do and that, this, it just keeps adding shit on. Yeah. So, thank you so much for. Yeah, thank you. You don't know how much it means to me in these years of recovery to have a platform to say what I want to say or what it wants to say without quick parasitical rebuttals. Just to put it out there, don't have, just put out the codfish. Doesn't have to have a mackerel and salmon next to it, just cod. See, I don't know. I may not be a great understanding of English, but it sort of sounds like that's the direction of the inventory, is to see the common manifestation of self in our lives, and resentment, fear, and harms done to others, pursuing what we want, are those common manifestations. So I don't see how you could come out of the inventory and keep calling them yours unless we're not getting clear direction. Seriously, yeah? So there you go. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. So it sounds like the spiritual awakening comes before the inventory then.
The what?
I'm just not very clear on the exact nature of the wrong is identifying as the self.
Yes.
But it's with step 12, it's having had a spiritual awakening.
Yes.
It's not very, so where is the spiritual awakening to have the power kind of realigned to, from the right perspective, to be able to see that? Maybe I'm overthinking it, but to have that perspective to see the exact nature of the wrongs, it seems like the steps are in the order they are.
Yes, because it's coming through a certain mail slot called the action figure. So there's a lot of convincing the action figure in a lot of ways to allow something that's already available to be available. Yeah. So the spiritual awakening is a result of the steps. The spirit isn't a result of the steps. That's always available at all times. There's the awakening to the spirit is the result of the steps. Yeah? Because hopefully this idea of self has been diminished sufficiently that something available right now, that unsuspecting inner resource, will not be unsuspecting anymore. Yes? So, like in my experience of coming to sobriety, I sort of was struck sober. And in a real sense, I got all of sobriety in like a second. And then it's played out for 33 years. Yeah? How does that make sense if you think this happens because that and that and that? No. There's a manifestation that appears in time. So things get worse and things get better in time. But basically, the spirit is not of time. Yeah, the spirit isn't becoming more spiritual or in a fear of being less spiritual. It's spirit. It's of emptiness. It's of nothingness. Yes, it doesn't have a 4-foot arm span or shit like that. Yeah, and like Jesus says, we're in this world of appearance and of action figures, but we're not of this world, let's say, of appearance and action figures. Yeah. So to me, the great effect of recovery is in the action figure world, but the cause of that effect comes from the spirit world. Yeah. But its area of effect is in the action figure world. You travel lighter. Yes. You do less harm. A lot of other things start occurring. You're contributing to life, not taking from it. Yeah, you're losing interest in self and gaining interest in others. You're going through a transformative experience. Yet that which is causing the transformative experience isn't a transformative experience. It is of spirit, always will be of spirit, is, was, will be of spirit. Yes. Yeah. But its effects are shown through us. So we think we have changed, but what has changed us hasn't changed. Yeah? Yeah. That's my... I don't know if that is what you were asking, but yeah.
So the step 4 and 5, the inventory and the disclosing it to someone else, what's the purpose of that? It's just to undo the knot, is it?
Well, you'll see. First of all, it's not just telling someone else. You always have the idea of the higher power there. So it's more like a triangle. It's me speaking to someone else in the presence of that energy. Yeah. And then, in a way, that's one of the first convinces of the action figure that it's serious about this, is the 4th step, because you're doing something, you're writing and shit like that. And so on that level of being the doer, it's a convincing that's necessary for a lot of us. We feel like we belong in AA then, and so it has a lot of effects on us. The 5th step, sharing it, obviously also opened up an opportunity to share secrets that you would have sworn you were never going to share with anybody, to take that opportunity of that safe space to put that out on a table and see what seems to be so huge when it was inside of you gets right-sized when you put it out. I saw that as incredibly powerful in the 5th step. I shared something with that guy that I didn't believe I was ever going to share with anyone. And then the funny thing was, he was yawning when I shared it, so I had to share it twice, that which I was never going to share in like a 30-second time span. So that vow of never sharing it, I broke it twice in 30 seconds. I think that's a pretty much, in a world of like green lights and red lights saying you stop and then you go, I thought that gave a lot of permission for the spirit to work in the action figure. The action figure, quote unquote, doing the working steps. Yeah, I do. I feel a lot of us live on a restrained permission we're trying to win from some lower power. And in the beginning, you've got to convince it by action, really. You can't think yourself into good action in the beginning. You got to act yourself into good thinking. That's not how it goes forever, but in the beginning, that's how it goes. Yeah? So the action figure is such an important role in that time frame. It gets a much more right-sized role as the spiritual condition being innate becomes more obvious, yeah? But in the beginning, yeah, if you don't do shit in AA, you're not going to get much, yeah? So you take commitments, you do these things, you do service, You're not of service at the time. You experience being put to use when we're doing the service in the beginning. Yeah? That has a lot to do with the action figure. And yeah, that's what I think recovery is. Recovery is really working through the action figure until we start getting placed in a position of neutrality with no thought or effort on our part. You know what I mean? We go into another level of solution that doesn't seem to be the dominant level at the beginning. Yeah. So the effects of the program or the higher power in the program change as we lose interest in self, because losing interest in self is not losing interest in the body, meaning taking care of it, but losing interest in the body as the center of the universe. Yeah, yeah. You lose interest. Yeah. You don't think you stop at the skin line. You know, yeah. So you could spend hours on that, because it's not a black or white thing. Yeah. It's almost as if spirit blends into the material, and the material sort of weakens by the effect of the spirit. Yes? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll open up to questions now. If anyone wants to raise their hands and ask a question about 12 steps, Paul.
I love this period. Pause.
So, Mike, I'll ask you to unmute.
Hiya, Paul. Good to see you. Thanks for being here today. Just a quick question. I was doing a main share a couple of weeks ago, and I was sharing on step 4 and 5, and it was suggested to me strongly that I am not there to actually teach, but just to actually give my experience, strength, and hope. Yeah, I know that when I've attended meetings here before, you've stated that we are the teachers of tomorrow. Can I have your take on that, please?
Well, because in AA it's mostly about experience, strength, and hope, that when you teach in AA, it's more through what you are than what you say. But then we have workshops and seminars and symposiums and 3-day little meetings where they have workshops on the steps, where there's more, let's say, formal space to teach. Yeah. So basically, it was sort of what you were doing, if that's what was happening, would have been more appropriate in a different setting. It's not like there was any right or wrong in it. Yeah. Yeah. See, I think in a period of time, it's funny, after 30 years or so, or maybe less, you just go, hey, this experience, strength, and what is it? Experience, strength, and hope, and opinion. You have opinions about things. Yeah. And I think you've earned the opportunity to share them. Yeah. Yeah. Experience, strength, and hope. Yeah. Yes, yeah. So that's why here we have a platform that's based for how this thing goes. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I just shared my appreciation. Yeah, because a lot of times you may be sharing from your experience, strength, and hope, but people don't see it as what their experience, strength, and hope would be. So then they think you're teaching. Yeah. But the funny thing is, you could be doing the exact same thing to them when they're talking. But yeah, so this is the perfect way to do it. When I was young in recovery, we ran into that a lot. So then we'd always announce at the beginning of the workshop, this is not an AA meeting. And then people would go totally ballistic because they came in late and never heard that announcement. And I'd always point it out to them. Well, if you would have been on time, you would have heard that this isn't an AA meeting. And then they just huff off and leave the room. And then they used to whisper to me how much time they had as they passed me. It was fucking crazy. I have 28 years. Yeah, so what? It's not about years. So, yeah, so we've always, yeah. I share differently at meetings, if I share at all. Yeah. So, yes. So remember, somebody got something out of it. You're always put to use, Mike. Yeah. That one person, it may have meant the whole world to them. Yeah. There's something else. There's a loving presence that's running our group thing, not fucking members of AA all the time. Yeah. So I said some crazy shit, and then one person comes months later and says, what you said brought me back, and now I've been sober 8 months. Yeah. And I heard from 10 people, you shouldn't have said that when it was said, but it was still put to use. Yes? Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Is there anyone else who'd like to ask a question? So I can ask. So the came to believe, you come to believe through working the steps, but what is it that comes to believe?
You're just gonna make a lot of discomfort for yourself. It doesn't come from the steps. Came to believe comes from an observation that when you entered AA by going to meetings, you haven't even done the steps yet. Let's say you haven't drank in 3 weeks. So you realize that something has done for you what you couldn't have done because you haven't not drank for 20 years, let's say. Yeah. So now you go into these AA meetings and you realize, hey, I haven't drank in 3 weeks. You've now just had the experience of coming to believe that something greater than you has restored you to sanity concerning the first drink. Yes? The word came means it's already happened. I came to believe. I've witnessed something's working in my life that didn't seem to be working before. That's step 2 in my view. It doesn't come from the steps. It's a step. Yeah. It's an observational step that, hey, I don't care what I'm saying to myself. I haven't drank in 3 weeks. And so something's doing something to cause me not to drink. Hallelujah. I think I'll make a decision to turn my will and life over to that. Because I like these 3 weeks better than the last 3 years. Yeah. So I'm going to make a decision. Where's the contract? And turn it over to the care of something greater than myself. Yeah. Realizing sooner or later that I have no real power to complete that contract. I have to do the working steps to sort of initiate the transfer from being run by the lower power to being directed by the higher power. Yeah. So that's how I see it. I don't think that you come to that conclusion by doing the steps. You can come to that conclusion by witnessing the miracle of not drinking for a few weeks. Yeah, it's awesome. So,
okay.
I think he talks about it in the 12 and 12, though I'm not a big believer. I don't really, whatever. I have an opinion about the 12 and 12. But he says that step 1 and 2 are reflective. Step 1 is reflecting on what it was like before you came into AA, and the step 2 is reflecting what it's like after you came into AA, maybe for the first few weeks. And you come to the observation that I'm sober, and I can't believe that's happening, and it doesn't seem like I have much to do with it. So I've realized, I call it, all right, so there's a movement I could give the name a higher power to, and something is doing for me what I can't do for myself. I rush right into the third step. Let's go. Yeah. I found the cure. I found the answer. Yeah. Let me sign up. All right. The third step. And then after, I do the third step and I start writing. I start doing an inventory. Hopefully on how self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. I would think that would be clear direction. Yeah. And then share the patterns of that self, how it defeated me, with someone else. They could point stuff out to me. Use that time to share secrets that I was never going to share, which was taking up a lot of space in my little storage unit. Yeah. And then immediately, what I used to come to about only after terrible effects, I start seeing before anything happens, and I bring that to 6 and 7. Yeah, I see that which is going to lead me to fuck it, and I bring it to the higher power, and I ask that power to remove it. Yeah, and I'm entirely ready for it to do that, and then I ask it to remove it or reconfigure it, and there you go. Now I'm in 6 and 7. I write that list, step 8. Step 9, I start doing amends. For me, I ran into a lot of amends that I was conveniently avoiding for years. And life, I could see that the current of the river was changing, and I better go along with it. So I just went with it, made the amends to the best of my ability. I learned a lot about amends by attempting to make them. And then I've done 4 through 9. And now I enter the maintenance phase, which will maybe a long phase. And really, 10 and 11 is the maintenance phase. And 12 is the new agenda of my life, which is to practice these principles in all my affairs. And if I can't right now, limit my affairs. And then help other people achieve sobriety. Yeah, there you go. Step 12. That becomes a new direction of my life. And it's been a direction of my life for 30-something years now. So there you go. So 1 and 2, observation, reflection, hopefully leads to the idea. Step 3 sounds like a good deal. Yeah, I enter into that proposition. Immediately action is necessary. Start writing an inventory. Not writing a novel, writing an inventory. Share it with another person. Step 5, with this power involved. Step 6 and 7. There's going to be constant shit revealed to me, and a lot of it is going to be alcoholism, and I bring that to the higher power. It transforms it. It puts it to better use, that energy. I make the amends in my life so I can come to a neutral condition about the past. 10, 11, 12, hey, look at what this power is doing to me. Maybe I'll try to improve my conscious contact with it. They suggest 2 ways you can do that, prayer and meditation. There's many ways, really, but they start with 2. And the intention isn't to become a great prayer or a meditation master. It's to improve one's conscious contact. That's the point, yeah? The methodology isn't the point. The point is to improve one's conscious contact. That's step 11. Step 10 is you continue to take inventory about what? About self, really, in a lot of ways. And then to take some positive inventories about what it's like to live outside the bondage of self. And I had a good day today. I didn't fuck up. I didn't lie, whatever. Yeah. Step 12 is there's the agenda. Okay. After having had this spiritual awakening, we're going to make ourselves available to practice these principles in all affairs and help other people achieve a sobriety. Shit. Step 12, there you go. 1 through 12. Yeah? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can surrender, it will lead to surrendered. You can meditate, it will lead to being meditated. You'll feel a presence without doing anything to feel it. Yeah? These things they grow into other conditions they didn't capture in that big book. They only had 4 years at most of sobriety. They were under the influence of this program and the higher power that comes through it for 4 years. Some of us have been under it for 34 years. Yeah? More has been revealed. And AA is a big enough umbrella to fit the more that's been revealed. So at least our members can hear about shit and come to their own conclusion. Yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
Can you imagine? It's like the day when, you're riding the bike with someone pushing it, and then the day you push it, you put your feet on the pedal. Yeah? There's a progression. And then you never forget to ride a bike. You never forget how to ride a bike. Yeah? This is sort of like us. Just like we were under the influence of alcoholism, we're under the influence of a higher power now. Yeah? The longer, the more manifestations and expressions it can develop. Yeah? Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to be clear about one thing. First of all, I'm not talking about ego when I talk of self. I'm talking about a mental activity that implies you're something that you never were. And it tells you you're always going to be that. Yeah? And it makes you very, very open to being misled by thoughts because of the ownership of being the thinker and everything else. Yes? That to me is what we're relieved of, the bondage of self. Yeah? Yeah. And I do not see it as ego. I see it as a feeling of being the doer when doing is noticed. The feeling of being the seer when seeing is noticed. Yes? This sense of ownership of a lot of shit we have nothing to do with, really. Yeah? I think it's just, we've been, yeah. And this doesn't come from an intellectual understanding. The intellectual understanding came from relief from the bondage of self. From the relief of the bondage of self, an understanding came. Yeah. The understanding didn't come before the relief from the bondage of self. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
You ready,
All right,
Paul?
Steve,
This is
go in.
this is Mike because Ben got booted for bad internet connection, but so I think I'm hosting right now.
Oh, yeah.
So Gary has his hand up. You ready for Gary?
Good job, Ben.
All right. Cheers.
Remember, it was just the internet connection.
So I guess I have to ask Gary to unmute. Hi, Gary. Are you?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, Gary, nice to see you, Gary.
Hi, Paul. Nice to see you too, and nice to hear you. I just want to chime in about the thing that made so much difference for me that you talk about, which is like I've never heard this anyplace else, that somehow self was other than me. Without that, I'm always glued to this inventory. I'm glued to any defect. There is no way I get any other perspective than to beat myself up and, down, up and down. So, my life was either beating somebody else up mentally or myself up mentally. And there was no way out of it. Self couldn't get out of self. So when you presented the possibility that selfing process was something other than me, it was like, whoa, what does that mean? That is, the image comes to me, it's like the manacles just fell off. I was stuck to, I was in jail to something, and a door opened. The possibility of being free. I know I'm saying your words, but I find myself doing that a lot. The possibility of being free of that self was present, and there was before hearing that, before entertaining that possibility, it there was no possibility of freedom. It was, yeah, people might tell me, oh, you're free, you know, just walk out of prison. Well, it doesn't feel that way. Yeah, I know it might look that way to you, but for me, so for you to bring this message that maybe I'm not that self, maybe that self is a process that I've fallen for, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. The other image that comes to me is like, it'd be like walking through a forest path and there's a big root that sticks up, but I never see it. So I trip over it every time. So having eyes to see that there's a big root in my path, if I can see it, I can step over it. I don't have to fall down every time. But
Yes.
Without the, you know, warning, self thing going on here, I could easily just fall over and kick myself and kick you and everybody else. And, you know, like you say, fuck it. And so I'm appreciating that message that allows something else to happen where before no other possibility existed.
Hey, Gary, let me jump in on that. So let's say one of the reactions to the root would be getting knee pads, getting a helmet, you know, have Band-Aids present. All this, just constantly thinning yourself from around the root reality. Instead of questioning, yes, to see the difference that there's a possibility I can step over the root. Yeah. See, this is what happens. It's not like it's impossible. It's just there's a limitation of possibility. Yeah. We don't even get a chance to see if something's impossible because we never even entertain that it's possible. So it's we used to do it with the story of the guy with the tumor, and he just takes the tumor to be him, and instead of having the tumor removed, he's got to get all his clothing tailored specifically to hold the tumor on the left side of his rib cage. You know, his Italian shirts have to be tailored, his jackets and everything like that. And again, just has no idea that that thing could be removed. He's going on dark websites about people with tumors, and he wants to meet a woman with a tumor on the right side for his left side tumor. And all this shit on and on when, you know, the message, hey, you could get that removed. Yeah. And then what happens though, after years of fitting around that tumor, he sees that invitation as a threat from the tumor's point of view. It's like getting it removed. I spent tons of money tailoring all my clothes, and my girlfriend, we only met because of the tumor. So now the tumor seems to be essential. Yeah? This is exactly what the selfing is like. It becomes completely essential for your life when it isn't. Yeah?
You can't imagine being without it.
Exactly, because you haven't heard the possibility. That's all. That's the only thing that stops us, is that we just don't, our field of possibility is severely managed, truly. So instead of being okay, the only possibility we have is we could become okay, maybe, if we do this and this and that, or memories, I was once okay. Yes, you see it? It's unbelievable. The mental magic trick goes on and on. It has us believing so much fucking shit. Yeah, it's slavery to me. And to try to get in the ring with it, you've lost. Yeah, you have to see of it. I feel, to me, that works. So yes, exactly what you said, Gary. Yeah. That's what happened. I was calling self me. It limited my possibilities. As soon as I saw it as other, the possibility of being free from it became available. like that in a second. I swear to God, I remember it right now when I saw self with a complete sense of foreignness. That word, reading that sentence on 64, and then immediately my head had a possibility available. I can be free from it. Yeah? Bingo. And that started this whole fucking thing, really. It really did. Yeah? And this is what happens. You don't know when you're living under a mental dominance, a lot of possibilities are severely limited. You have blinders on, like they used to talk about, yes? You're being directed. You think you're seeing, but the seeing is being directed. Yeah? You're not allowed to see much. Yeah? So it gives you the sense that you're still seeing, but the amount of what can be seen is severely limited. Yeah? What can become possible and shit. Yeah.
It doesn't feel like freedom.
Well, it isn't, Freedom then is like, I can run through the red light. I feel free, whatever. It's mimicking of a weird fucking mutated idea of freedom. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then people want to die on that, I'm going to kick your ass. It's so fucking crazy. Yeah. But hey, thanks, Gary.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I don't see any other hands. Anybody else want to raise their hand?
That's all right. I can save my throat. We already did a talk at 9, and we got to do one at 4:30. So, yeah.
That's right.
No, it's not me doing it. I'd say no, really. I'd say, fuck you. I'm not doing it. Yeah, everyone, thank you. I hope, yeah.
I'm going to allow people to unmute themselves. I think that's appropriate now then, right?
Yeah. Let me just say goodbye. Yeah. Hey, Stefan, on having never left. Nice to see you. Ben. Thank you. Ben, you did a good job, just though temporary. Yeah. You'll be hired again. Yeah? Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
I think he's frozen. Tom, can you hear me? No, I think I lost everybody.
I think it's you.
Tom?
Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you.
Yeah, man.
Good. I'm saying by the Tom from Keene, New Hampshire. Nice to see you, Tom. We got Mark. Nice to see you, Mark. Mike, as always, thank you. Remember, we have something at 4:30 today, Mike, too. Yeah. All right. We got Rich A. He's on the move. Oh, I don't usually put that kind of sky together with England. Yeah, sort of looking nice there. A clear sky. We got Connor. There he is, taking it easy. He's realized that self is a foreign activity, mechanical in nature, has nothing to do with volition, and you may be accountable for its actions, but not responsible. Hallelujah. There's Eamon. Nice to see you, Eamon. Oh, well, the sun is so heavy, he has to protect his eyes from it. Wow. That's something I don't see much in Ireland either. Wow. We got Nina. Nice to see you, Nina. Yeah. Always a pleasure. Let's see. Jacob from Seattle. Kicking it. Jacob. Yeah, we got PK from Long Island City. There he is. Nice to see you, man. We got Maggie. We got Chris S. He's just entered somewhere from somewhere else. We got Michael Stacy. Looks like he's getting ready to take a train. I don't know what's going on there. He's leaving town. Tanya C. Nice to see you. I talked with Tanya the other day. Hey, everyone. Thank you for today. Oh, wait a minute. We got Kerry. Nice to see you, Kerry. Walter from the Netherlands. We got Mickey from Madeira. Tommy from Ireland, I think. We got Paul from England. Paul, I'm giving you another shirt. Wait a minute. There you go.
That's a good one, Paul.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not bad.
That's
Yeah, a little.
good.
That makes it one.
Yeah,
You won.
That's it.
yeah. Sit down, Paul. That's good. We got Mike-O. Thank you, Mike, for the shares. Yeah. Steve from the UK. Nice to see you. Gary, the man that came out of the corner. Always a pleasure. Nice to see you, Gary. Living log. Thanks, everyone. Now there's Tanya. She's chowing down. Hey, thank you. Hey, I'll see you again tonight. Today, we have something at 4:30 Pacific time. Information's on Zen Bitch Lab. Tomorrow night, Thursday, Saturday. Yes, so they're not getting rid of me that easy. No. Yeah. I'm going to be like a Zoom, a thorn in your side.
Parasite.
In your side. Yeah. All right. See you guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you,
Thanks very
Paul.
much.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks, man.
Thanks. Bye.
Nice work, Ben.
All right,
And
cheers.
Mike.
Thanks.
Yeah, well done, Ben.
All right. Good to see
Yeah,
you.
nice one, man.
Bye.
Did you stop recording, Mike?
Oh, that's right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.